Thank you, Shilpa, for the introduction. And thank you to International Foundation to begin with. Thank you for inviting us. So what are we going to do today? We want to make sure that your 2 hours today, you'll walk out with a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge that our performers have gained over past couple of decades, more than 3, 4, 5 decades. And the best way to do that is to engage in Q&A. How many of you have read the volumes by Pandit Vishnu Narayan Bhatkhande, Hindustani Sangeet Paddhati? He's written 5 or 6, 7 books, and they're so amazing. They're all in FAQ format. The disciple asks a question and he gives an answer. So the entire books, that's how I really got fascinated by that book. And it just became so clear, especially if you're an engineer or any STEM education. It's so easy to follow. The Shishya asks a question and the Guru gives an answer. It's a phenomenal set of books. I highly recommend starting to read. It's actually, it feels daunting, but it's not. Especially if you like music. So we're going to do the same here. So at the end of this, what we want to do is, we have a varied audience here, right? Some of you are performers who I know, some of you are very well good performers, and some of you may be just learning, starting somewhere. So we want to make sure we start with the basics. We'll start with understanding the basics of taal and lay, and then we'll go and start going to the crux of this session, which is understand why the artists either sing or play Vilambit. Why Vilambit? That's our topic. So why we do that? That's what we're going to focus on. Then we'll do a demo of Vilambit taal. Okay? And as Vivek mentioned, there is some activity for you, maybe some homework for you as well as we go along. Then we'll watch a live performance. And as we continuing the journey for next 2 hours, I would love for you to ask questions. I'll ask questions, because that's how we all learn. We learn from each other's questions. That's the format that we'll use for next hour and 50 minutes or so. That's our goal. Sounds good? Alright. So let's start with basics of taal and lay. So Vivek, let's start an understanding of what is a taal.
There is a one bright thing that I did was I gave a mic to Shripad, so that all the taal related questions, there is a thing called redirection that we use, right? So whatever comes my way, I can throw it out to him. I'm delegating. Yeah. But before I try and answer the first question, I'll just tell you why I thought about this. And for years and years, I've been playing or listening in, sitting down and listening in the audience. What I notice is there is a distinct body language change that happens. So people are like doing this, looking here and there, like something happens. And in throughout Vilambit, what happens is the singer is doing something, and all of a sudden, for no reason, everybody, or at least quote unquote knowledgeable people, will say "Wow," and then that is maybe some percentage, and rest of the people will look at them and say, okay, something must have happened. And this pattern continues for good 30-40 minutes. Then the Drut Tintal begins, and then you can see the difference. Everybody is now paying attention. So does this ring bell at all, right? And then I noticed that, okay, why is that the case, right? I mean, then you're missing out the biggest part of the concept by doing this. So I said, I had that idea, then Shubhangi and me have been discussing it for quite some time, and this is the culmination. Okay, so now go back to the question.
No, that's the problem. That's great. So now tell us what is a taal. So both of you start.
Yeah.
What is a taal?
Hello, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so taal, there are several different definitions. So if you read different books, there are several different definitions, but it's basically a measure of time. That's as simple as that, what it is, right? And there are then we can go into details of they typically say sangeet, which is basically sangeet is vocal or any instrument playing, anything, all of that, right? Anything that gives the stability to that is presented in a vocal. That's another definition. And one of the things that I have heard, simplest one as they say, is from original Bharat Muni, right? They say basically that they are the ones. He has said that basically anything that can help you measure the time of a presentation of a sangeet is basically taal. It's as simple as that. So, anything that you want to add?
No. Good.
Yeah, so it's a basic, it's rhythmic pattern with fixed number of beats that goes along with time.
Correct.
So we have some examples of taal, right? As you mentioned, there is rupak that has 7 beats. There are lots of taals. Rupak with 7 beats, Kerwa that has 8 beats, Japtal 10 beats, Ektal 12, and Teen-tal is 16 beats. Are these all the taals, or there are more taals in this?
There are plenty of tals. The most common ones are Teen-tal, of course. Ek-tal is most common one. Ek-tal, especially in Vilambit. But the human beings are binary in a sense that we can count 2. We can count 2, we can count 4, 8, 16. Contrary to popular belief, we all learn decimal system in school, right? It's hard to count 10. 5 and 10 are difficult to count. 2, 6, all they are good. So there are tals like which are in the 2, 4 or like 4, 8, 16. 4 is the Kumarji Steka, which is just 4 beats. There are other tals, something like Adachav tal, which is 14. There are various versions of 14 tals, but though we are kind of getting too much into weeds. So for now, let's only stick to Teen-tal, which is easier to explain, and Ek-tal, and I'll explain the reason why we have chosen Ek-tal, especially in Vilambit context.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we do that, right? So in music, as Shripad mentioned, there is sur and there is taal. So sur is your notes and taal is your rhythm or time. We are going to focus on taal today, so we will talk about sur but not much. Okay. So that's taal. Now what is lay then? We hear the word lay. What is that? And there are questions feel free to, because that is how we are going to build. We are going to build from these questions. Initially it might be very simple, but then it will get complex. So if there are questions, let's ask them the question.
Lay simply is the speed, and if you go back to sports arena, which we all go look at things, right? The way a marathoner will run and the way a 100-meter dash runner will run are different. So literally that's different speed.
Okay.
One can't do the other. You cannot take the 100-meter speed and go for 26 miles. Right. So that's just fast, slow, medium, very slow.
So it's basically a tempo.
It's a tempo.
Basically a tempo is the speed at which the time is progressing,
right,
or the taal is progressing.
Taal is progressing.
Right? So we have some examples here of taal or taal lay. Lays are tempos. There is a Vilambit lay, that means slow. Then there's a Madhya lay, which is the medium lay, and then there is Drut. These are the common ones we see, and today we are going to focus on Vilambit. Okay, that's our topic. But are there any other lays than this, or are these the 3, or there are more?
Ati Vilambit
is there,
and Ati
Drut is there.
Okay, so we'll make sure you play those when we go.
It's something, I think if it goes really fast, it's called Anudrut. Anudrut. So it's very, very fast.
Okay.
Question?
Any questions?
Question. Yeah, how do you differentiate between the 3 lays? Is there any distinct differentiation? Like, how do you call something as a Vilambit or
There is no clear distinction in terms of like you go beyond 70 BPM, you call this or that. So there is general thing which I can,
you're right. By the time we are here now, in these days, there is no definite definition of what the speed exactly is. In the original books, they have said it's basically Vilambit is half of Madhya, Madhya is half of Drut. Originally, that's how they defined it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we play exactly like this here, right? By the time.
And then one more thing I'll add is, because this is art, music is art, There are always exceptions. There is no fixed rule, even in sur, la, tal, everywhere. So we'll have these exceptions. So whatever our performers or artists will tell us, that's more for a general guideline. There will always be some exceptions, some corner cases, some edge cases there.
So maybe I'll show, since there was a question, I'll show like a mid-tempo and fast tempo. Yaman ki bandi hai. हमारे कौन है? That was medium. That was fast. Same taal, it was teen taal. But one was much slower, as you could see, than the other.
Great.
Yeah.
Quick question.
So what's the difference between taal, lay and then theka?
Yeah.
What is the difference between tal, lay and theka? That's a good one.
So there is one more thing that we haven't talked about, which is called matra. Right? That's basically something. So tal is.
We're going to talk about that next.
Next,
But continue.
matra is basically the units. That's the difference, right? One is just what you're measuring, the difference between two points of time, and matra is basically that gives it the unit of it. So that's how you count 7 matras. That makes it 7 beats. In whatever lay it is, whatever taal it is, whatever, right? So, and theka is basically is what they call Hindi में रूप बोलते हैं ना. So it's basically what is उनका ताल का रूप is theka. So you can so there are like especially Kalebua, right? Kalebua is a taal, 8 beats. But then theka can be lot. There are like so many variations in the like right? So dhage na tinnak thinna, or you can do dhage tinnak thin, dhage tinnak thin, dhage tinnak. So all of these are basically different. The root will be different, but the taal and the matra are same.
Which one, sir? I've noticed that for instrumental, for example, let's say sitar, the jhala is at much higher speed, and then vocal there is no probably equivalent. Is that true? I mean
that is true, because in vocal, you really can't sing that way.
Yeah.
That's number one. And there are one of the things is like all instruments, every instrument is limited except human voice. So we don't need to do that. There is no absolutely need to do that. If you start doing that, at least in Indian classical music, you'll be hooted out. Then they'll say this is not right.
And because we
But-
also use words
Exactly.
We also use words.
in
Yeah.
singing.
In singing.
You could say tarana, and maybe the dance in tarana could be equal.
But
I think
this
some
time-
instrument has zala, right? Instruments have zala, but not vocal cords.
If I do this, see, this is all good on harmonium, not good on vocal. And it's asthani, it's not leading.
So quick question then, what Vivek just played, not this one, but the Madhyala and the Drutala. Anybody recognize what art that was?
yes, sir.
Yaman.
Kinare bandhi.
Not the Kinare, but yeah, the Ramrang Bandish that I think, the first one. Yeah.
Okay, so now then Vivek, what we're going to do is, you mentioned that we will focus on ek taal,
Correct.
right? And Shripad, you mentioned that there is a beat and there is a bowl for ek taal. So walk us through how does ek taal go. So we have this time scale, and then the time scale is going to do one matra at a time, right? One time unit at a time.
Right.
Want to
Yeah.
add something to that?
Yeah, पण मला एक दिसत नाहीये. There we go. So Ektal is 12 beats, and the reason we chose 12 beats for Vilambit is that's the most prominent Vilambit teka that you will hear. There are other people sing in various other ones, but I would say more than 70% if you go to a concert, most likely it will be Vilambit Ektal. And again, once you get used to what to do in Vilambit Ektal, the next steps is just a small step, right? So that's why Ektal is chosen. And again, it goes like this one. Yeah. So then, dha, tra, ka, tu, na, kat, tin, dhage, tirikita, dhi, na. That's 12. Then, dhage, tirikita, tu, na, kat, tin, dhage, tirikita, dhi, na.
And these are called bowls, right?
These are called bowls. Now what I'm going to do is, in a drutlay, I'm going to recite them. First with just me. Then I'm going to recite with him and me together. And then we are all going to do that. Okay? So everybody should recite. It's like when you go to Aarti, right? There is no matter what, you will sing it. So same thing today. So I'll pick a line. Din da.
Just one more. There is. So that's the
good. Yeah.
That's the one cycle, right? That's one cycle. And then it repeats.
It repeats. Yeah. So let's do it right now. Din da tu na tin da di na din da tu na tin da di na din da tu na tin da di na din da tu na tin da di din da tu na tin da di na din da tu na tin da di din da tin da. Very nice. Yeah. As you notice, it repeats. So I get asked this question often, especially in Drutlay. What happens if I miss the tal cycle? Very simple. There is one more coming. Don't worry about it. And if you miss that, there is one more coming. So there is nothing to really worry about. And whether it's Drut or Vilambit or Drut, one good thing about our ancestors is they had plenty of time. So there is nothing rushed in our music. There is no need to rush into anything. Okay, take it easy.
Very good. So everybody got Ektal bowls. What is the Ektal? Or do you want to recite more? Is the teacher satisfied?
No, just want to add. So there is a din dhatra katurna, but also the play what we play actually din dhage tarke. Actually dhage is actually pretty prominent in there.
Yeah.
So tell us. I was going to ask that question. There's also on the next slide. So it's written dhage or dha, but you played dha, and it's also written tirakita, but you played traka. What is the difference? Is it same? Is it allowed?
Traka is the short form of tirakita. Yeah. So many of you might know it. So basically tirakita is 4 and traka is 2. So it's basically halves it basically, right? And in the fast speed, we generally don't play tirakita. We make it half. So
because you don't have enough time, right? Because
yeah,
their life cycle is short.
Just fitting it there in the whatever short time we have. Yeah.
Can we listen to the
almost always?
Hey,
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You always play dhage, right?
Yeah, we always play dhage there. Yeah. In fact, it's actually pretty, as I said, it's pretty prominent, right? So it's so typically, maybe maybe it becomes dha, but
Yeah.
mostly dhage is the prominent
But
one.
it's a very important point because as we proceed towards slow Vilambit, you all will see that certain bowls will expand.
Yeah.
And this is how the expansion happens slowly over time.
Yeah. So today's talk is about Vilambit. So the lay is going to get slower and slower. But if the lay gets faster, then he gets even shorter time to play. So there is going to be short form.
Yeah.
It's like a cursive, doing
Yeah.
things quickly.
Question?
So what is the significance of cup? Because they all the time say that okay, play, pay attention to cup.
Cut is the halfway point. So it will come in the when I do the demo, it will also, I'll explain that as well. But you do want to know कि आपके घर का पता क्या है. So you have to know where you are going, right? And you'll know where you are going only when you know in the taal cycle where you are. So sum is easily identifiable. Kat is the halfway point. So you know that you have traversed half the taal and you have half more to go. So you can plan accordingly.
So, talk about like sub-beats, the first two are dream, then Dhage is like 2, then Tirakita is 4.
Correct.
So, is there reason some of them are 1, some of them are 2, some are 4? Like, is there...
Simple answer is just it's the composition of the taal. It's just the contour, right? I think a lot of these taals have come from nature. I think it's just basically for me. Personally, the ek taal sounds like more like a running horse. Like it's so beautiful, right? It's running. I was it's a घोड़दौड़ म्हणतो ना आपण तसं मराठीमध्ये.
Galloping horse.
Galloping. Yeah. So that's how it is. It's come from nature. It's just a din धागे तक तुन din धागे तक तुन din धागे तक din धागे तक. It just
One thing I can add to Shripad is in music, when somebody is performing, either vocal or instrumental, they use surs, and we know sur, right? Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. Similarly, on instrument, he has some bows. Every instrument has their own bows. For example, satar has da dir da. So they have their own syllables. So tabla also has syllables. That's how a tabalji or a tabla player plays. So those beats are fit into that at that instant. That's what he's doing. So the time is important, but the ornamentation that's done around that is with the bows, and that gives the nature, as you were saying, the teka. That gives the uniqueness for each taal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but to answer one question that she asked, it might look, it is not 4 beats. It's a tirakita, but every matra in that is 1/4 beat. So that's how it is to look at this.
That's a good clarification.
Question?
Question, you mentioned most of the taals are like binary, humans being binary.
Humans being married.
Why not 5 or 10, right?
Because if we look at it, even if you are walking, for example, your count is 1 2 1 2, right? So we cannot count 5. It's harder on us. Japtal is difficult.
Okay, but
Yeah.
Rupak is 7, right?
That is a very interesting point. In fact, I had written a major blog on this topic. Rupak is an exception. Rupak is something that humans can count 1 2 3, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. And I don't have that answer. I gave a bunch of examples, and then it's interesting that you brought it up, because when I wrote that blog on e-Prasaran a while back, I noticed people commented on it, and there is some version of 7-beat taal, Rupak, that exists from South, Carnatic, to Bengal, all the way to Afghanistan. And there are some Afghan musicians who explained that as comments, and I forgot the name, it either Moguli or some such term. But the Rupak version does exist in Afghanistan. But that is the answer. I don't know the answer, but 7 is easy. 5 and 10 are difficult. 4, 8, 16 are the easiest. 12 is kind of something in the middle. All the rest of them are just difficult.
There is one more theory why phone numbers are 7 digits. Because beyond 7, people can remember 7. Up to 7 is very easy to remember for most of the people. Yeah. So it comes from the telephony.
Oh, wow.
The most beautiful words I had heard about why we are binary was actually from Pandit Birju Maharaj. Right? Somebody had asked them, or he was just explaining. He said, just close your eyes and listen to your heartbeat. It's thak, 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 thak. It just goes in. It's like 1 2 1 2 Okay, when I
Yeah.
heard it was so beautiful. So we are binary.
We are binary. Yeah.
But there's also pause after that.
There
There
is
is
a
also
pause, there is a
pause
pause,
after that,
yes.
and that anahat nad is also important.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is important.
So, Shripad, one quick one. Some 8-bit, some people play thin, some people play taal. Is there any
Correct.
significance to that?
I've heard both,
Both.
and both are correct actually. I've heard, but Vilambit we do play thin. So din
That is-
dhage tarkat tu na kat thin dhage tarkat.
That is schedule versus schedule.
So one more question. We are going to focus on Ektal because Ektal is usually played for Vilambit, right?
Right.
But we saw other tals, right? Rupar, Japtal, Kerwa,
Right.
Teen tal. Are all these tals played in Vilambit?
Not really. So Kerwa is not played at all. Rupak is mostly Madhya, not very Vilambit. Tintal is of course Vilambit. And its versions of like 16-bit versions are also played in Vilambit. Very few Adachav tal, but not too many. So there are certain tals that will lend themselves very nicely to Vilambit and Drut both. There are certain tals that you simply can't play in Drut at all. They are only Madhya or Vilambit. Dikchandi, for example.
And the converse is true as well, right? So Jumra equivalent.
Jumra equivalent.
There is
Jumra is only slow. Only slow. You can't have fast Jumra. Tilwada is also pretty much Vilambit.
But they are all 16-bit cycles.
Yeah, all 16 bits.
Not
Tilwada and Jintal are 16 bits. Yeah.
So I have a question. When we talk about binary, for me personally, even 3-3 sounds very natural. 1-2-3.
1, 2, 3, 8, 2, 3. So that is also, there was another blog again I had written on P. Prasaran. For some reason, everybody knows that my knowledge about dance is in negative. but for some reason the waltz, the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 lends itself very nicely to that data. So that's why we can actually count it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's also short, right? It's only 6 bits.
Yeah.
The shorter the better for us.
That's also the galloping horse, right? When it goes. So I think that's why it's natural.
Yeah, it's natural. Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to go talk about the different tempos of
Correct.
Ektal?
Yeah,
So you
different
can
tempos,
start
yes.
from your slide on the right too. Yeah. So it's the same thing, right? Now you're going to show us how that develops in Madhya Laya, right?
So in the Madhya layers, certain bols will expand, and they will expand even more in Vilambit as we go. So then, dha, ge, tera, kit, tu, na, kat, tin, dha, ge, tera, kit, thi, na. That's the first cycle. Again, you can see the expansion, right? That traka has become tirakita. Together?
So that's one cycle, right?
That's one cycle. So again, the next cycle is similar. Then, dha, ge, tera, kita, tu, na, kat, tin, dha, ge, tera, kita, din, na, and back to no. Do it together.
One silly question maybe.
Yeah.
The fifth thing you said two.
Two, tin and two are again same thing.
Same
Same thing. Yeah, just little variations. 1, 2, 3, 4. Din, dha, ge, tera, kita, tu, na, kat, tin, dha, ge, tera, kita, din, na, din, dha, ge, tera, kita, tu, na, kat, tin, dha, ge, tera, kita, din, na, din, dha, ge, tera, kita, tu, na, kat, tin, dha, ge, tera, kita, din, na. All good? I'm just going to draw your attention to one phrase and I'll tell you why a bit later. That phrase is tirakita. Tirakita. Okay, just remember that. Control C in your memory. It will come back at some point in time.
So now we'll see this and then show us how does it go in Vilambit now.
Okay, so this is the slow tempo. So then.
Oh, so 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You'll
Okay,
get.
okay, I'll go back to that. Okay. Then dha ge ti ra ki ta tum na ta tin dha ge ti ra ki ta tin na din. So this is the complete cycle. 48, correct.
And then it will come back.
And then it will come back again. So here if you notice it, in spite of mistakes I made, if you notice we are dividing every matra into 4 microbeats. So if I count it, so I'll internally what I'm doing is then, dha, ge, ti, ra, ki, ta. That's my thing going on. One more thing, if you listen to anybody starting the khayal, they will always show the first 4 microbeats. That's how the Tabaji will know what the lay is. Otherwise, it's impossible to get. Again, notice Tirakita has now been completely spread out. No more dhage. That ge part is now even more prominent. The na has moved from na to na, then. So this is the complete full form, right? Fully qualified domain name, as we call it. So it's the fully qualified tal. Everything, this is the lay, Vilambit. Now let's do it all together, okay? One.
So basically you now have more time.
Now we have
and so more time, so the time has expanded. So you're taking.
So yeah, every beat basically is divided into 4. Every beat is now 4 microbeats, right? And I think Pradeep, you were when you were saying it, you just said it a little bit early, like once you were doing that. So just to remember everybody, when we say a particular tempo, there are always microbeats. There is never not a microbeat, right? Even if you say din, dhage trikadtun na, kat din, dhage trikad din na, there are microbeats between din and din. Because I can say din dhage trikadtun na, kat din dhage trikad din na, din dhage. That's why that happens is even if we say it's a half or double or whatever, there are always microbeats. So in this one, typically in Vilambit we typically break that into 4. So din 1, 2, 3 and din. Dha, ti, ta, dha, ta, dha, ge, ti, ra, ki, ta, tin, na. So that's up.
That's up, yeah. So let's recite that. Okay. To Adhuji. 1, 2, 3. Now we have completed one cycle. It's that long. Now the problem that for the singers or players is now all of a sudden you have a lot more time. So if you are doing something super fast and everything, then to calm down and do something meaningful in this time is a problem. So that's where the crux is. If you don't know what to do, then like sometimes you go to a concert, right? And then people say, "Aaj kuch jama nahi." So what is that jama nahi, right? So jama nahi part is in the Vilambit. If your material runs out in 5 minutes, for example, then in 5 minutes, Vilambit cycle has only played for maybe 6 or 7 times. So after that point, it basically becomes repetition. It's like rinse and repeat. So that's the problem. And if you don't know what to do there, then what people do is then say, okay, enough of this. Let me go to my Drut Teen Taal and start. Okay, but then it just doesn't work. You must have seen this, it's a common. There is no shame per se, because that's how everybody will learn. We all go through that, and that's why our music is our music. It's not written. You have to figure it out on stage.
One question I have: there are some goals written here, and for example, the 21 and 45 beats, we written na, but then you sang. There is slightly different variation. Na,
correct.
What is that? Tell us what is that, and is that okay?
Kasa bharla jato.
Kasa bharla.
So it's as you already said, Vivek already said, right? The more Vilambit it gets, more time we have, right? And basically keeping it empty also doesn't sound right, rather good, and also. Another reason for filling is typically it also keeps the layers going. Yeah, because when I'm filling something with a tira kita, the tira kita is much easier to for us as a human being, just easier to keep that tira kita or tira kita. So when I have that just fits into your mind, and basically that's part of why we are filling. Na, same thing. It is na. Ka. You have no idea what I'm doing. Right? So na. Actually, now you exactly know what the 4 bits are going. So that's
time markers.
सगळे 48 ते 48 मायक्रोबीट भरून ठीक आहे जाऊ.
Yeah.
So okay, now he's going to fill everything, and that's how for especially for classical vocal we do like that. Instrumental are slightly different, but let's do that. Extremely flowing, and even for singer or artist who is playing, you need that. You just can't play nothing in the middle. It doesn't work.
Tira kita part usually you keep it in the
Correct.
But I have heard some developers who are restless. Everything di ra tira kita. That's not necessary.
Absolutely not.
Not right. I got a couple of stories about that, but there is one question before that. Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a very fundamental question, like when you play the kikas, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, it's easy for us to count on finger, like as you said, like 1 bit, 4 bits, like. But when you play it specially, how do you recognize based on your sound? Because that is where we always get lost. Because I know Shubhani many times always tell us, okay, pay attention to the khali. Where the khali is, like how do you distinguish what is the khali and what is, I mean, understand technically, but it's very hard to focus.
I can try and answer that. So there are 2-3 tricks that you can do. One thing that you should never ever do is take the iTabla Pro and look at the numbers. That's the no.
Put
Yeah, that's a no. Yeah, that's so. Other than that, in Vilambit, that's why I asked you to pay attention to the Tirakita, because Tirakita happens 2 times, and this is as clear an indication of 4 microbeats as you can get. And from there, you can go and keep counting. So you know your 4 microbeats and everything in the Vilambit, in the Tirakita. That's number 1. That other thing is in other tals, like Teen Tal, the 2 teens that come together is the audio indication where the thika is. And again, I said it before, you are not in a rush. Like if he's playing Teen Tal and you hear 2 teens first time, that does not mean that in next microsecond you should get the entire tal. Listen to it once, 2 times, 3 times, then start counting from that tin and figure out where the sum is, and eventually the entire tal will open up to you. If you don't rush. If you think that, ab 2 tin sune, now I have to get back to sum right away, then it doesn't work.
So
Yeah.
Can I just add to that question? So the way I was taught and I learned is there are two Tirakita, yes? Tirakita. So then pay attention to what comes after Tirakita. So if it comes Tirakita, then that means sum is coming. So then that's
too late.
I just too late. At least you know. So then you know. Yes, good.
That's on the cup is important because
Yeah, that's
you should
not
know
very
which
true.
Tirakita is after the sum and which is approaching the sum.
Correct.
But that's why
See, when playing
too much, you will lose whether you will first half or second half. If you feel it too much, then you don't get an idea like, am I approaching Khali or some?
I think the singers could probably they should answer this, but in Vilambit, unless you completely get lost, you have an idea of after the sum, the Tirakita is not going to come very quick. The second Tirakita, typically the singers and players do have that idea of when it's coming. But yes, at the beginning, I think yes, the Tirakita thin helps, kat helps. So it basically divide quarters, divide halves, however, and then basically you have an idea of what's coming.
There is a pretty cool demo coming up for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, there is a level of anxiety when playing Vilambit because it's like missing an exit driving slow.
Yeah.
You miss and then you are like, next miss ho gaya to kya? And then I have to fill up.
No gas for next time.
It's like driving on the East Coast, next exit.
Somebody has a
Yeah,
question.
so like in 1 hour, you have these beats and micro beats and you play it. But like in a concert, like when you have like second hour, it doesn't sound the same in the sense there is some magic in between, like something like that. What is that? It's not like repetition of our turn one after the other.
I will answer that. The biggest, I'll have one story that Sapanda told, and that will help answer this question. So in his very young age, Sapanji wanted to go and accompany a vocal artist in Kolkata. He went to his guru, and his guru asked him like, okay, when you accompany him, what are you going to play? Which bowls are you going to play? So Sapanji sure, I'm going to do this Vilambit, I'm going to fill it like this, blah 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 blah. And then he said, okay, now forget everything that you said. And then he said, why? And he said, when you are accompanying, don't pre-decide. You have to listen to the music and you have to play according to what the artist is doing. You cannot pre-decide. If you pre-decide it, then you have lost it. So that answers your question. He is listening to what is going on and going to fill in or not fill in accordingly, including volume, everything. So even volume goes down, right? We don't play all the time. It's like, if you are talking to someone, if you just shout at that person for 1 hour, what happens? Everything goes through. Nothing registers. So even that thing keeps on happening in the concert.
So I'll also answer, I think maybe just +1 to that, right? I think what Shubhangita said is when tabla player is accompanying somebody, that person accompanying, the main performance is happening at the center. So that person's role is supporting. That person is obviously brilliant, obviously very well rehearsed, but that's not the time to show that mastery. The time to show is to support, right? That Sayami, very considerate support is important. And I think that's the example of Kumarji's
Kumarji's tabla, ठीक है. Another question.
Yeah, so the syllables you fill in these microbeats, those are not, I mean, so if someone said, oh, Tirakita always comes, means what? Is it a global standard? So that's a waypoint every pilot knows, right? Whereas what you fill in microbeats is that those are sometimes not standard, and I've seen people struggling because the tabla accompanist is new and somehow he's playing Jumra in a totally different way.
Right.
And he said, no, this is not how I want it. And it's a struggle. So is that a standard, or is it, or it's just
that's where also I think the chemistry is also there between singer and player also, right? So it's not always like that. I mean, that's where some people really nice. And I remember the video we have with Sapanda actually played with you, Shubhangi, right? I mean, he accompanies so well on the vocal. So, and also when we fill, Tirakita, when Tirakita is coming, I'm not supposed to fill with Tirakita close by.
Yeah.
Right? And when there is a dha coming up, I'm not supposed to play like dha 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 dha. That's useless, right? That's completely useless for that. So then what we do is basically we take khali bowls or something like that and come to dha. So that dha is prominent and of course accomplished singers, I think even all of these don't matter and they know exactly the whole thing in their head. But typically also that's what we do. It's like I need to know that's where these syllables are important. So this is the dha. So when I'm playing with a dha, I'm not playing something else.
Let me add a question. When people learn tabla, and when they, I don't even know how and when they teach Vilambit as part of tabla playing,
right?
And is there a standard that these are the microbeats you should normally play, right? Whereas or no? Then it's left to individual.
Microbeats are typically left to. Actually, each one develops quite differently. I mean, if you listen to me, and if you listen to Ravi, right, and then Ravi feels it completely differently, and it sounds a little bit different for me as well. I can't even what is he feeling, right? I mean, he's feeling different. The pauses he takes while coming to some are different as well. So those are different. So each one is different. Yeah.
The last bit, when you come to the sum, are there any thumb rules where what to do and what, like for example, na, tip, or something like that? So I think I heard.
Only coming to the sum?
Yeah, the last bit, I mean, what do you usually do?
It's typically, we do whatever it feels good to come to sum.
Okay.
See, there are mukdas and there are mukdas, especially for Vilambit ektals, that we play. And then there are also mukdas that sound good when they are playing like antra, when you go high, versus when they are just sthai, when they are singing sthai. Those are also different.
Any other questions?
Can you show us some examples of these later?
Yeah, when we play, I think I will show you.
Yeah, so it helps to, this is when I teach for vocal music, if you focus on two, dhin, dhage tirikate together. To na, katta, dhage tirikate, dhin.
I see.
It's easy to.
So again, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So 2.
Because the vazan is like that.
Right.
Dhin, dhage tirikate.
So the divisions
That's
Wow, kya baat hai. Kya baat.
So, how do you keep the human clock? I mean, are you counting when you are playing this, or it's happening?
No counting. I've got scolded by Sapanda so many times. He doesn't even like this.
No, in the sense, keeping time
No,
between two beats.
It's internal clock.
It's internal clock. So it happens naturally after a while.
So I have one more. Sorry, if you are too many questions, we can cover. Is there a standard to write this in bars? And so how would, I mean, it goes to how Shubhangi was explaining, right? So is it worth teaching? And
it is, people do write it. In fact, she is sitting right behind you. She is the one in my class who writes it in bars, and that does help. But what I have found to be helpful when people write in bars is if you start from the sum. So typically what we do is we write a bandish and it starts on the khali. We write it like that, but our khali is at the beginning. But when you do it in bars, you write every line in physically 2 lines, and then it starts at if it's a 12 beat, and if it starts at the middle, then it visually starts in the middle and ends on the first line later on. So there is a good visual indication as to where the hell it is starting. Like Tana Mana Dhana Tope, or for example, will start right at the end, and everything begins at the 12th beat.
This is also Hindustani music. It's Shrotru Vidya.
Yeah.
It's not written. I mean, we
No,
were
I tried to depict it like this, so that's
Yeah.
why I was thinking,
Right.
what is there a way to for teaching, not for
teaching.
practicing.
But from listening standpoint, right? If you are a listener, there is a difference between listener and singer or performer. So from listening perspective, you don't have to know all these details. There are only 2 things that you have to know. One is the sum in Vilambit, and second is Tirakita. That's all. If you know this much, basically you are covered 95%. Everything else will come automatically after that. And there is a demo coming up for that. Yeah. Question?
Just one question. I know some of us have learned Carnatic and then come to Hindustani. So
Right.
in Carnatic we do 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 1, 2.
Correct.
Is there any easy way to remember or translate between that and just I find it hard to understand this. This is too many more than Carnatic.
I have played at least like 50 Carnatic Jugalbandis. We are still not found an answer.
Okay. So that's one entire hour then.
Correct.
So then, crux of the question, right? Why do players? Maybe you want to go back and say,
Yeah.
the audience question. Maybe go back.
Audience question. Okay.
So why play in or sing in Vilambit? Right? That was your question.
Why play? Okay.
Why?
Why play?
Why
any
do
answer?
performers use Vilambit Taal to begin with?
And again, this is art form. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so-
there can be multiple right answers.
Shout your answers.
To set the mood of the rag.
Correct.
Okay.
Mood of the rag.
To warm up the voice. And
Yes.
chemistry.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. Any other?
Vilambit is the soul of music.
What?
Vilambit,
It is the soul of
Vilambit
rhythm.
singing is the soul of
Music, yes.
music.
It is.
Yeah, you're pulling the rag with Vilambit.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the beauty of every note.
Beauty of?
Every note in the rag.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think people are just like they know the answers. All of them. Yeah, all of them are correct.
Rag establishment is reasonably possible in
In I'll give one real life example of that. There was a Jaipur Sammelan in Kolhapur 4-5 years ago. All top people went there, Ashwini, all those Jaipur people. And one part of that, almost for maybe 3-4 hours, was only dedicated to the Anvat Rag that Jaipur people sing. They sing Sorat and this and that, all kinds of different rags.
And Anvat means?
And so Anvat means aprachali. They are not common. They are not like your Yamans and Booms of the world, right? So very few people sing it. So the point that I am making is they recorded everything. There was one rule for that. And that rule was you can sing only for 20 minutes or 15 minutes, which is a practical rule because you wanted to cover things. And you can only sing Vilambit. And why? Because when you go from Vilambit into Drut, the rag rules typically can be broken a bit here and there. Whereas in Vilambit, you don't break that at all. Vilambit is like the purest form of the rag. So they absolutely had that rule. And then there are a bunch of Vilambit that probably are already available on YouTube from that Kolhapur Sammelan.
I think the other way I look at it is when you do Vilambit, it's like freehand,
Freehand.
white canvas.
Yeah.
Whereas Drut, you're only filling colors. There's something drawn on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a great example.
So
Yeah.
the relationship
Yeah.
between the swars can be brought out easily
Easily.
in Vilambit.
Yeah, correct.
The Badat also.
Yeah, Badat
Yeah.
is there.
Badat is there. Yeah, Badat is there.
What is Badat?
Badat is like, I'll probably talk a bit even towards the end, but Badat is a slow development of the rag that happens during the Vilambit.
And so maybe then one more question to you, Shubhagita. So then Vilambit happens. So before Vilambit, something else you folks do. That's Alap.
Yeah.
So do you do Badat in Alap?
No. It's just a initial setting the mood without the tabla.
Yeah.
And I like to do very short.
Okay, short Alap and then go into Vilambit.
But some people do long.
Correct,
Alap
yeah.
and then they start. especially instrumental, they do big
Lot of big
rock
ones.
and
Yeah. Jod.
Jod.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
Agra people do that too. They do no tone. Yeah.
Okay, so now we want to reveal your answers.
Okay, let's go through the. Yeah, everything was done. Like they said everything. That's it.
You want to walk?
Yeah. So ensure the accuracy of soul is mainly for artists because they have to make sure that their voice is properly they sing slowly to get in the right soul. Mood of the rag we talked about. Explore the facets we talked about. Protect singers' vocal cord in a sense that if you sing too much, this is like running a marathon before warm up. You can't do that, right? So you have to do your warm up. And acclimatize is like set the mood. So the mood normally is most of the times it's very cool and calm. I said most of the time because there can be some rag like Adana where it's not the case. But then whatever you want to do is like you do at that point.
Yeah, but that also, the last point also speaks to the fact that you may have seen when a main singer or main performer is accompanied by a tabla player, they're meeting for the first time, but they still give a flawless performance. It's because the tabla player is listening. It's constant feedback, both of them, and the tabla player is listening to the main performer. That they understand how their sur laga. I don't know. I didn't find the right word for sur laga. What is it? It's the approach to a note. That shows the approach of a note of a main performer. Let's say in this case, Vivek is the main performer. If they are playing for the first time together, they had never even known. They just met on the stage for the first time. But then, as Vivek started playing, then he gets the rag, then he gets the wazan, then he gets the approach, how the artist is doing, and then the tabla player will start playing accordingly. He'll understand the approach, he'll understand the volume, what phrases he's emphasizing, what phrases he's not emphasizing. So it also gives them time to warm up. So that's how the music just improves after that. So there is a question.
Quick question. So if you were to ask the same question about Dhruv or Madhur, the answers would be.
So by the time the performance has progressed quite a bit, we are already 45 minutes into the performance. So the answers are different at that time.
What would you say would be the top 3 things you're looking for?
For top 3 things like what?
Why sing Dhruv? I think that's the question. What are the top 3 reasons you sing Dhruv?
First of all, it's a very interesting answer I'll give you. Dhruv you sing because people like it. And maybe second and third answer are same. Allah Jasa Sahab in old world used to only sing Madhyalaya, Vilambit and Madhyalaya, and then that's it. Done with the rag. Move on.
Is it that you also have place to show your vocal cord, taals you can do maybe more on Dhruv?
On Dhruv.
And also tabla players like it.
Tabla players like it. But again, I said that when I put the ad in for this thing. So Dhruv is like achar in the whole meal. You only eat this much. That's it.
One call, number 5, to me, that's acclimatization is more relevant for the melody accompaniment.
It is.
So imagine you don't play Vilambit, and then you get into Dhruv, you don't even know each other. You don't know
It's very difficult.
Exactly. You can develop that relationship on the melody side.
For both harmonium accompaniment and
Or
also
violin
or even vocal people who are like trying to accompany, right? For SamVaad.
Vivek, so when I read that description that you had written as I was reading it, so not paying attention or missing the Vilambit is like going to a great meal or grand meal, and I was almost going and miss the whole meal and just stay for, and I was thinking he's going to say dessert. So that's why people like it.
Yeah, I don't eat sugar. Okay, so now we are going to come to an interesting thing. Okay,
The next one.
Yeah. You can show that.
So this is a clock that is developed by Anjana.
Yeah. So it's very interesting thing, right? I mean, it is really a clock. So what you do is din, dha, dha, ge, ti, ra, ki, ta, tu, na, kat, tin, dha, ge, ti, ra, ki, ta, dhin, na, din. So this is the entire cycle. Now, any idea why we have three colors here?
So some approaching probably the 11th to
Correct.
approaching some.
Absolutely correct. 100%.
Orange is a danger zone.
That's a good one. I never thought about that by the way.
Missing the exit zone.
Missing the exit zone. So the way we have thought about this is each cycle is a flight. What do you in the flight? You take off. Okay? That is the takeoff phase is the green. After that, you are in the cruising altitude, right? Then that's where most of the work happens. And the
That's
orange,
the blue color. That's the blue
that's the
color.
blue color. And the orange is the landing. So, fasten your seatbelts. That's the orange part.
Probably all the time.
Probably all the time. And then this is how a singer or a player will think through the taal. So there is a takeoff phase, then they'll introduce something, then all that work will go on for prolonged period of time, and there is a landing phase. In our singing, since it's not written down, once in a while you might miss it. And for people, so what is a miss, right? So for people like us, if we miss the sum, it's a sum. For people who are like really good, they also miss. But for them, miss is different. So miss for them is they have a certain thing that they want to show in that cycle. And they have a certain way saying that, okay, this is what I'll do, this is what I'll do, and this is where I'll start winding things up, and this is where I gracefully will come to the sum. And if that thing gets delayed and somehow that grace is missing, they are not missing the sum, but for them that's a miss because then the grace is lost. And it's lost sometimes, most of the time they get it, but you smile and move on.
So I think what you're saying is there is not only a technical part to it, and I think the way I internalize this, all of this is, not only there is a technical component, and human brain really has to work on multiple threads, like parallel processing. So you are singing or performing on your own, that's your own thread. And you're paying attention to the tabla or the accompanist, what they're playing. So that's another thread that's going on. Fourth is time axis, where are you on this whole thing? And then maybe another axis is the aesthetics of it. You can do everything right, it could be all in sur, everything, but then there has to be a beauty too. So that's why it's art and science both do it. And that's what you enhance.
Yeah, correct. So the aesthetics part, after we finish this demo, we are going to come back to that. But right now I'm going to do something interesting. Okay. And this is why this clock was built by Anjana. So what I'm going to do is, there is a Bihag composition in Vilambit taal, sung by Vinayakrao. I'm going to play that right now for you. And while the tabla accompany is going on and while you are listening to it, I'm going to advance this clock. So again, look at only two things. First is sum and second is tirakita. So there is one tirakita that shows up right after the sum and then one tirakita that shows up towards the end. And then what happens is between those, there is some work going on, and then see how she is coming back to sum. And what we are going to do is, I have chosen 2 or 3 samples, and every time we listen to 2 or 3 cycles of the Vilambit tika. before we go to the third cycle, any questions? Does that make sense what you are seeing? Visually, can you get the Tirakita? Okay, we'll go to
So
the.
one observation, Vivek, the
Yeah.
prominent, from a volume standpoint, the dhage and na was a lot more prominent, and Tirakita was very soft actually.
It just depends on style. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, depends on style.
But you can't even hear the key. It's like Tira, you can hear, but the key.
That is the recording problem.
I think
It's
it's
also
also
okay,
older
okay.
recording.
older recording.
Okay,
Older
it is-
recording.
okay.
Yeah, older recording.
It is not about how it is played.
No. It's the recording is older.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we'll go to the two. We'll go two more cycles. Okay. So these were some cycles that we got. So again, the whole point is like when you actually listen, that's what the request is to do that. Look for those Tirakitas so that you know where you are. I'm going to move forward to a different time section and we will listen to a little bit more advanced part of the raga.
So I was just saying, if you can give a little bit more treble, the tabla might be a little bit clear. But that's why, I mean, many times when there is tabla, right, if you listen to headsets, that's much tabla is,
Okay.
yeah. With bigger speakers, otherwise if you're just listening from the iPhone speakers or phone speakers, it won't be as clear. Okay. So if you put headsets, that's when the whole tabla and all the frequencies become clear, right? So.
Okay, I'm going to a different time signal here. Time scale. this was a little bit, rag was a bit advanced. And now I'm going to go to the third and last section of this demo, where the antara will end, the lay will increase, and she will get into bol dance and laikari. So we'll listen to that part as well. So hope this, encompass most of the Vilambit. I just showed like 2 or 3 cycles at a time. But the hope is that with this you will enjoy Vilambit more. That's the entire hope.
The whole, the meter eventually is running based off of tabla player's internal clock, right? He's keeping the meter.
Right.
So that's the crux. So if you have any,
the set, it is set by the main.
right, but eventually
Set by the main.
it is subject to what he keeps.
No, but he will probably not go faster or slower than what the main
That's
person
the
is
hope,
going.
yeah.
That's the hope.
Because
Right.
otherwise we
Yeah. I think it was probably Bharat Kamath and Pramod Marathi. This is a Pune recording. Yeah, so perfect. Yeah.
Then also you can see the figures are different.
Yeah.
In the picture, Tirani was always constant.
Correct.
The other pillars were
Pillars were different. Yeah, pillars will be different.
It was very peaceful.
Yeah, very different.
Very peaceful, very calm.
And the pillars also changed towards the end when the light became slightly faster. It slightly increased, but then the pillars also started changing.
You talked about Laikari, right?
Right.
Laikari and Boltar. He talked about Boltar and
where we
Laikari.
fill a lot,
Okay.
and then that is going according to what they are saying. Sometimes advanced tabla players will actually match the filling with the kind of dance they take, the kind of alats they take. If it is in 3s, if it is in 4s, if it is 6s, they actually fill it that way. But that really takes it to the advanced level where they can actually come up with those kind of goals on the fly, and then they can do that. But otherwise, its filling is typically Laikari is where we fill a lot.
That's why the management 1 + 1 becomes more than 2, right?
Oh yeah. Yes.
So what are we going to do next, Vivek?
I'm going to take the same bandish. I'm going to play it slightly differently though. Slightly differently in a sense that since it's a leg dem, I will talk about what I want to do, and then I'll play. That doesn't mean I'll do it correctly, but at least that's the hope that we want to, that's the way. And then now, again, without help of the numbers, hopefully you can look at the Tirakita. That's why I told you to pay more attention to the Tirakita. It's very easily, you can see it quite easily.
Okay, so now I have a quick question. We're about to perform. What did you just do? That hammer.
Okay, good one.
What is it? Tell us more about that.
That's just a tuning. So typically, I'm sure you all know, because of the weather, because of what's going on, how much I have played. Some people sweat, some people sweat less. Whatever, all the reasons, whatever that are. Basically, the note changes, the pitch of the tabla changes, and we typically maintain the bass by this and pitch by the tabla. So I have to tune it every time.
Every time, because I remember one of my friends saying, "Why don't you do that at home and come here?"
That
Let's
is
not
true.
pay attention to me also.
It does change though. It depends on tabla, quality of the tabla as well, but it does change.
The light and the play.
Light,
Everything, the temperature, the weather basically, whatever the weather or the atmosphere or in that room is, that does affect the pitch of the tabla.
Playing also will affect some.
Yeah.
So the powder is actually for sweat. So you don't always stay strong.
Yeah, correct. Typically, yeah. And if you observe solos, when they are going to go into fast dhira dhiras or something, they will just do that. You can just notice that. It's basically for yes. It's basically, otherwise if it becomes sticky, then it doesn't go that fast. What do you tune the left? It depends. Some people do it to the, some people do it to the. Depends on what their style is. It's not to the exact pitch of that one. And there is no those many pitches you just cannot tune dagga to the same pitch. It's not. But typically A sharp, C sharp, the baya does change, and it depends on how much. Some tabla artists press this a lot. For them, they actually tune it a little bit to the lesser note, but that typically is like neither sa. That's it.
She's asking what is that tune to? What is the Maya tune to?
It sounds like girl.
This is Kanda. It just I don't look at this one. Yeah, I listen to it. But when it is Gandhar Tabla. Yeah, but when it doesn't sound good, you know it. So that's why typically don't pay too much attention to the depth. But yeah.
It's perfect for Bihar.
Very good. I'm going to play the same Kaise Sukha Soye. Initial part. Next few cycles is going to be nice and slow introduction of the rag. So, as I said, there is no rush to do anything. That's the key. That's the mantra. simple plain rag. Now the next part I am going to show you the bit of Laikari, which I'll go a bit upon the leg.
And what is Laikari?
Laikari is playing with the leg. So right now I was not only looking at sur, nothing else. My focus was entirely on the sur. Now my focus changes. It's sur plus the leg. The next thing is Bihar lends itself very well to these four notes, Gamapada, and with the Tivrama. So now the whole idea for next few cycles is try to play around these four notes. So now you get some idea, right? How sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not work. But my Guruji used to say, I don't know how to translate it, ki gaanala hetu pahiye. There has to be some thought behind. There has to be some purpose behind every cycle that you play. And then ultimately, if you look at the entire performance, then each cycle is connected to the next cycle. And that's how the whole thing shows up in front of you. If it works, it's very nice. If it doesn't work, we smile and move on. What else can we do, right? Nothing we can do. And the last part that I will demonstrate right now is the two parts I'll show. Both are related to the taal. Same leg, but I'll play the taal part and before that I will play what we call, it's laikari, but it's picking a random line, which is pretty difficult to do, but I'll give it a shot.
But I just want to add to what you said. So that you said your Guruji told you to find a purpose in every phrase. Is that why it's called khyal?
Yes.
Because then there is a thought behind every phrase, or every cycle, every hour, and everything that you build.
So that's why it is khyal. Khyal is thought.
And that's why you say kya baat hai. Because then there's something you're telling in musical terms. Baat is that. Right?
So
Baat is that.
Yeah, so the real word, the correct Hindi word for what I just did or tried to do was kahan. Kahan is what do you want to say in this? Every time, every cycle, there has to be some kahan in it. Just because you can sing very fast dance, if you start doing that, you lose it in 5 minutes. People will just walk away.
This is where we're going to the aesthetics territory, right? Because now everybody has a word, everybody can speak a word.
I always do this example, and I'm never tired of doing that. See, when somebody writes a nice poem, right, the poet, they don't know more words than you and me.
Exactly.
Okay. In Bhu, I have 5 notes. Kishoritai also has 5 notes. She doesn't have a 6th note. Like same thing, Guldar has famous कुठली आंधी मतलब कुठला होता इस मोड़ पे आते हैं और लाइक तेरे बिना जिंदगी से कोई शिकवा नहीं तेरे बिना जिंदगी भी जिंदगी की okay I know every single word individually right I know tere I know bina you can keep on going can I write it no I can't write it only Guldar can put them together so I got 5 boot notes Kishorita has 5 boot notes but way she puts it together is where that pratibha lies.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not that she is faster than she is not the fastest person in like Tan is not the fastest, none of that. But it's here. That's the key.
So one thing I heard, I don't know. So when you were doing the laikari, you did it like 3-4 laikaris, right? The way you were ending was also different for each of the laikari. So you knew what he was going to do in the end.
No, but
because I think after the last second Tirakita, it was like you are preparing to sort of end it. When you knew you was going to end it, you played it different. So you had something going, I think.
It's just the way it is, but it's part of the. I don't know if it's called Badata now, but basically it's the way it is building together.
Yeah.
And sometimes I play the even the tihais, right?
Yeah.
Coming to Mukda of the tihai of the Vilambit.
Yeah.
I cannot design that at all.
Yeah.
I just don't know when to play it, but I know the way he is finishing up.
Yeah.
It has to come at that point. That's all.
It's the crescendo that's building.
That is the
inspiration he is giving me to play something like that.
It's the crescendo that's building. We also observed that Vivek towards the end started playing little louder, and he also started matching them. Right. That's what the crescendo built, and then you felt a sigh of relief. I mean, it's in a very pleasurable way.
It was complementing well. I mean, it sounded you can't replace the fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to give one example of what you said in terms of the khyal and the thought, right? It's once even especially after Vilambit, you also notice your own mood. It tells a lot as well. Couple of concerts have been out somewhere. I mean, there have been already many good ones also, but some of them have been in a way after the concert is finished, you feel like somebody has been chasing you, somebody you just came out of the jungle running out of it. I'm like, oh my God, what happened in there, right? You just look at that mood. That wasn't it, and some of them are completely meditative. It's like you come out of that and you're just feeling at home. You're like very meditative. So that's what the khyal is. The way they build it and everything, right?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do now tans, and there are 2 parts of this. One is like a regular tan, and one is like a set of tans which is not necessarily in the lay that he is playing. It's art.
And what is the tan?
Tan.
Playing so very fast.
Playing fast. It's double or 4 times the speed in this case. that was the last part that I wanted to say. Now we are waiting for more questions.
I have two questions for Shripad. While you're playing the taal, he was going out of sync on taal. Did that bother you, or does it did not bother you? Did that disturb you? And how? And the second question: how do you keep up with that?
Yeah, it does.
Because it was clear he was going offbeat.
It absolutely does. So what basically starts happening is as he goes off, the thoughts start coming to my head. Right? Basically, either I can completely ignore and continue playing. That's the best way to do it. Unless you are at a level where I can match it. I basically best way to ignore. It's similar to also the other way around. Lehra, exactly. It's like Lehra. Basically, I'm keeping it very safe, and then they going completely off it. So it's basically exactly the other way around.
And Lehra,
isn't there muscle memory?
There is. I can actually completely, I can talk my name, address, everything. I can still continue to play my Vilambit. There is.
So, the fact that it has 6 divisions and 2 each, is it, does it come into play in composing a bandish somewhere? I mean,
composing as in composing what I'm playing or a
in
bandish?
any, let's say, ek tal, I mean, particular bandish, can it be composed in, let's say, ek tal and teen tal?
Yes, Vilambit bandishes can.
Okay.
Yeah, they can. I mean, there are many examples of teen tal bandish getting converted to ek tal and so on and so forth. Yeah, because it's quite spread out, right?
Okay.
So that's the reason. There are
question is-
many more ways you can do it.
I mean, the divisions in the tal, how are they important for, let's say,
Not extremely important.
Okay.
Not extremely important. Unless you are talking something like Jumra, where that 1.5 beat you need to keep. Other than that, it's not extremely important. It's quite important in the truth. Any more questions?
There is that also. I think it comes back to also microbeats as well, because when I was young and I used to see.
You still are.
Was that?
You still are.
I was kid when I started learning tabla. Right? I used to play. I used to see very young kids, like 7, 8, 6-year-olds also be able to play difficult tabla, and I used to wonder how that's possible. But that's what happens is basically when you learn, even if it is, let's say it's titina dina dina, right? If you learn titina dina dina, that's 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. They are basically what they are fitting all the kaidas and railas and everything as part of that. Basically, they are fitting in 2s or 3s or 4s. It basically all comes back to microbeats. So that's how it's tricked to basically be able to. And that's why when tabla teachers teach, they always ask you to count like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 1, something like that. So that you always keep that microbeat in head, and then you narrow it down like and then you can just focus on the macrobeat and then learn whatever you want to learn. So
Basically, there's a metronome going in your mind.
Correct.
Interesting.
So in Vilambit, where does your orange zone start? Like for us as students in Vilambit, it's a long cycle. So for Madhya Druta, we start even from 1 hour and before we are like orange
Right.
zone, we are like paying attention. But in Vilambit, it's a long cycle. So where does
Definitely before Tirakita, but at least Tirakita. So if you are beginning and if you are starting, then make Tirakita as your planning point for finishing.
First Tirakita.
Second Tirakita. And then eventually you will start planning before that, a little before that.
So is it right to start the first Tirakita you start saying now I need to start winding down?
No, first Tirakita is your cruising. Yeah. It's cruising altitude. Yeah.
But even from the kind of come to a conclusion, logical conclusion.
What, sorry?
Your thought also has to
Come to a logical conclusion. That's the
It's
thing.
like abstract.
Yeah.
If not, there is one more cycle.
The problem with Vilambit is that one more cycle is quite long. That is like getting lost in San Francisco, right? You miss one turn and then you are forever lost.
So when say, and that may be true for anything, when you listen to the second Tirakita, then you sort of prepared what you are going to do?
As you listen to the second tiragata, because after that it's too late, as Shubhangi said.
Yeah, it's too late.
Now
Yeah,
you can still get on the sum, but then you'll somehow land on the sum.
Okay.
That's the difference.
But then I have a separate question for you. You just landed, but then you have to take off again on the sum. You,
Right.
you concluded your one thought.
Right.
You landed on sum, but then you have to do something else.
Right.
How do you do that? How do you plan for that?
It's the whatever thing that you are doing.
That continues.
Yeah, continuous. There is a exactly.
First, whatever alap you did, it
It
will follow.
continues.
But you can take a pause also, right?
When you are doing the initial part, that's where you take long pauses. I did that, right? When initially I paused quite long, and my notes were quite elongated. They were nice and easy at that time. Later, no.
Our teacher tells us that each artha is a thought and each thought continues together.
Yes.
Strings together like a garland or continues as a story.
That is true. Yeah. Everything has to be consistent at the end of the day. It's not like ghazal. In a sense that ghazal, if you know what it is, then it has that Radif Kafiya, and that is all good. They are all connected like that. But the meaning of the first shear and the meaning of the second and meaning of the third are completely different, and that's by design. It's not by accident. That's by design. But that's not what is other than that. It has to be consistent. Question?
Aren't there such markers for Vilambit Teen Tal?
Sorry?
Vilambit Teen Tal?
Are there markers for Vilambit Teen Tal?
Vilambit Teen Tal, yes, there are markers. And the markers is, there is Dhadin Dinda, Dhadin Dinda, Dhatin Dinda, Tadin Dinda, right? So the last Tadin Dinda, the tabla guys will always play the first din louder and the second din a little softer, and then they will go to the sound. And that is really supremely important, because when singing, Vilambit Teen Tal is weird, because first fourth, second fourth, third fourth, and fourth are very similar, unlike Ekta, right? So you don't know where the hell you are. So my problem is like, is it the first din that I heard or the second din? And then, yeah. Dhatin Tinta is there, but even that is so slow.
Right, but you're towards the end, that's right.
Yeah, towards the end. But after Dhatin Tinta, even there is a little bit of time before the first din shows up.
Dhatin Tinta is very similar to listening to Kat in here. You are still not listening to Tiragida. You are still at Kat with the Tinta. Yeah, and also for playing Vilambit Tinta also it's very monotonous actually.
Very monotonous, yeah.
Can we get a sample of that?
But to answer your question, there is one Tiragita that we play actually.
Yeah.
So Tadin Dinda, last Tadin Dinda, right?
Yeah.
There we do Ta, Tin.
So that is a, and then what happens is if someone who has just learned the tabla without playing a lot with vocal, and they could be as good as they could be just good, but if you don't know this marker, then basically you lost it. That Tirakita before the first din, quote unquote, must be played, and that din has to be louder than the second din. Otherwise, the singer is completely lost, because they depend on that cue. Absolutely depend on that.
Can the tabla player also forget?
Tabla player also forget?
Like a new tabla player? I have done a concert like that.
It was not
Just was not playing proper.
Yeah.
I actually heard recordings, and this even Ektal. Typically, it's very rare to happen in Ektal, but I have heard in recording where they basically instead of Tirakita Din, they have played Tirakita Tin, and then they have to continue the based for the next 1.5 hours. I think the question.
What was the question? Composing composition, how do you select the taal? I see.
You don't think about taal, you just compose it and then the taal shows up. You don't do the other way around. Especially the light compositions, you don't say that I want to compose it in ektal. You compose it and the natural, whatever comes out, comes out. Yeah. it totally depends on bandish, and I'll show two examples of Druk Tintal.
And I will play Vilambit Tintal, whoever wants to come.
Yes.
So Adi Vilambit,
Maybe
Adi Vilambit also.
Somebody asked for it.
एक तालाचं Druk दाखव.
So I'll go dha. Dhin. Yeah, that's really Vilambit, but yeah, let's just see if I can do it. Yeah. That's too slow. Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. So 1. Yeah, that's the thing. It's the same for the same reason.
16 weeks and 12 weeks.
The question was taal related, so I'm going to do compositions in ek taal, both Druk ek taal. This is the Bega Bega Amidera, quite famous composition. You see the difference, right? It was the same taal, but the two bandishes were very different, not same at all. Any other questions?
Can you give some tips about what not to do in accompanying?
What in accompanying?
For example, playing too many fillers or playing loud the notes that you should not play loud or something, whatever. That will kind of distract.
What not to do? Let me see.
I think it's not.
But I think
It's
you
not the
said-
time to. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think you said it is basically
Yeah.
just too many feelings in our, especially for vocal, right? Because vocal accompaniment is completely different than instrument accompaniment. I mean, instrument you can just go play kaida, rela, everything you can come back. But vocal accompaniment typically you have to be, and again, especially when they start, it has to be slow, and then match their volume, all of that also. I mean, like, of course, yeah, that's a basic. I think I know that. I have to have that.
And Sayyam also, right? I mean, you have to have patience in the sense that that's not the time to show your skill. That is when performed. So stick to the basics, I think.
So showing the song prominently maybe the.
Yeah, the main thing what I do is even if it is Vilambit, even if I'm filling, the bass tal has to show.
Has to show from the bass.
That's the thing. So as I said, that is the main thing I do, which is if there is a dhin dhin dhage tirikita, then I'm not playing tirikita 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 or dha. When there is dha, I'm not playing, as I said again, too many dhas around dha. So singer has to know that this is dha, this is tin, this is tirakita, this is kat. Those have to be prominent, but again, not prominent like you are trying to show it, like you are trying to show it on purpose or something. But it has to be prominent.
Yeah, it is inspiring for the singer.
Exactly.
Each
Correct.
matra,
Each matra is also.
how you play it, it's very, very inspiring.
Any questions?
So now since we've had this leg them, right? So how should we approach when we are listening to a concert?
Yeah, good question. So if it's a theme, if it's a ek taal, you probably know.
Sure, those two
Now
things.
those tirakita are there. So every taal has those marker points. Teen taal, for example, we know that tirakita din is the marker point. If you don't know, then one thing for sure, you will know where the sum is. And try to watch for the matras that are before sum. That's where you will find that particular, because even singer is looking for that, right? So everybody needs that. It's not just the listener. Everybody needs that, and it's right there. So in any taal it will be there. Jap taal is there, rupak is there, kirwada is there. There are specific questions about taal, then we can even take that up. But by just listening to it, we can figure it out. As I said, that's a short next step. Now that you know what to do, 80% of the times it's going to be ek taal, but other than that, you will figure it out.
But this whole thing is like tabla centric. Like we talk most of it about the beats and things.
Right.
But to enjoy khayal singing,
So this
what
is,
does the listener look for?
See, this is the first step. So what, as I said, right, most of the people just are looking around, and when somebody says wah wah, they wake up. Right? That's what happens during the Bada Khayal. Now, if you know exactly where you are in the taal context, then the next step is automatically, then you will see what the hell that singer is doing, since we are in this phase, right? And then you will start looking for what is the end game that they are going to play. So all those things you can start looking at it only when you know where you are in the taal context. So that's why this was the main reason to do this. Then you start enjoying the next phase, which is how the Bharat is, Bharat is going and everything.
Bharat, right? So
Yeah.
you are going from like lower notes to the upper side.
Correct.
My sometimes my problem becomes is like the singer doesn't sing that upper side and waiting for it. It's
Correct.
like, sing it now, It's like
Let the next, let them-
if they don't do it properly, then it becomes really bad. But it spoils the mood. That you didn't even stay there on the star properly.
I think that's a great question.
I'm going to let Shubhang answer.
Exactly.
Sorry. Yeah, not me. Yeah.
No, I think you're asking for a separate leg then. You're just saying that. I'll tell you, just I think I'll let Shripad, but I think what we talked about is the tabla part of it. Now what you're asking about is what is the structure, what is happening exactly in those Vilambit. Now how are the stuff? What is the Bharat? What is the Kahel? What is the Bolband that happens? What is the Laikari? So maybe that's separate deal. Another thing, and you're probably in a great position.
We should.
From the vocalist standpoint.
Yes, yeah, that's what we need.
And also, I think the perspective is like, how do you appreciate what is happening, right? If you're sitting in the audience, so you're looking for like the beats, right? You're looking for the nuances which the singer is having. I think it would be useful to have like
I played a bit of that. We didn't tell too much because that was not the topic today. But like what I played was. So you don't need to know whether it's go or no. Who cares, right? But just listen to it.
It just sounds so good.
Yeah. I think I had asked this question to Vivek long time back. What do you listen for? He said, no, don't listen for source, style, anything. As long as you're having, enjoying inside, if there's a bliss inside, that's all that matters. But now that if you start learning, then what happens is the rags become persons. Right? Bihar becomes, he was playing Bihar. So Bihar, then you start liking that person. It's impossible to not like a rag. So, but every rag has distinct personality. Bihar is different, Kedar is different, Shuddhasarang is different, Maruviyag is different. As you meet that person more and more, you start liking that person, and then suddenly, one day Vivek brings such an interesting aspect of that person that you did not know. And that's a wow, kya baat. I did not know this phrase sounded so beautiful in Bihar. That's what these performers, great people do. Is they bring, there's such a tremendous imagination that we know Bihar, we've seen Bihar, we know Bihar, but then they build a completely different picture of Bihar. And that's the beauty. So I think the TLDR is, don't overanalyze sometimes, just enjoy. But then if you know that, then it becomes even more. If you know, then as I think I was talking to Nachiket, Nachi was saying, our Hindustani music requires the audience to have a discipline of getting into the zone. It's not just, it's like in the background. It's not like piano that you go in the restaurant and you can have dinner and the piano is in the background. This music will get in you and you will get into the music. So it requires a discipline on behalf of the listener too. So it's called, that's the difference I would say. I know we are erring on the, so we go from left brain to right brain and right brain to left brain all the time on this.
Part 2 is needed,
Some more part 2 is needed.
Actually, we were talking about it. What is the structure of a Hindustani classical concert? Right? Some people don't know. There's a 2-hour concert or 3-hour concert. What is the structure? They took 2 or 3 rags, then there's a bhajan, but what happens? So then I think there is a point in saying, this is a structure. Then first is slow, but then first rag, second rag, and then maybe there is an intermission sometimes you don't, but then you go to semi-classical, then you conclude. I think that might be another discussion.
That might be another discussion, yeah.